Your brand may be staying on top of current trends, but are you agile enough to stay relevant, resilient, and successful as customers, competition, and the world continues to change at a breakneck pace? I'm thrilled to share the newly revised version of my first book, The Agile Brand. I'm calling it The Agile Brand Revisited. It's been updated to reflect our continually changing world, and it provides 7 principles that form the backbone of an agile brand, offering detailed insights and actionable steps for incorporating them into your business strategy. This is the book that started it all, and I'm excited to share it with you. It's now available in print and digital formats and available everywhere. Learn more by going to the Agile Brand Guide website at www.agilebrandguide.com. Welcome to Season 5 of The Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we talk with enterprise and technology platform leaders about the people, processes, and platforms that make marketing and customer experience successful, scalable, and sustainable. This is what creates an agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advisor and consultant for Fortune 1000 marketing and CX leaders and teams as principal and chief strategist at GK5A, and best-selling author, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and Agile certified coach. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To sign up for the Agile Brand newsletter and get the latest insights and articles on marketing technology and CX, or to purchase a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, go to gregkihlstrom.com. You can also find all my books on Amazon and other retailers. And now on to the show. Today we're going to talk about modern e-commerce and how composable platforms offer brands the ability to deliver a more unified customer experience. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Filippo Conforti, founder and CEO of CommerceLayer. Filippo, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about this topic with you. But before we get started, why don't you give a little background on yourself as well as what CommerceLayer does?
Sure. I'm Italian. I founded CommerceLayer in 2017 after an experience of about 5 years in building and scaling the e-commerce platform of Gucci, the Gucci.com platform. So after that experience, I learned a lot, and I built this new platform, CommerceLayer, which is in short a commerce engine for a composable stack. And I'm sure we'll discuss more about what composable means.
Great. Well, yeah, so we're here to talk about modern e-commerce and how composable platforms offer brands the ability to deliver that more unified customer experience. So first, to make sure those listening understand fully what we are talking about when we say composable, can you provide your definition of what composable means in a broader context?
Yes, so I'd say that we have to define composable versus the traditional approach, the monolithic approach. When you work with a monolithic platform, you typically buy an all-in-one solution and you generally have to customize that solution to fit your needs, to fit your actual needs. With a composable approach, you take a different approach. You instead of customizing a monolith, you compose your stack with different components. You split your experience into different capabilities, and for each capability, you pick one tool, a different tool, typically, that is specialized on that specific capability. So you are building a stack rather than buying a monolithic platform, and the stack again is built by different components. That's why we speak about composable commerce, composable platforms.
That's great. Yeah. Thanks for doing that. So, common challenge that brands have from the e-commerce perspective is their e-commerce platforms and the capabilities of those platforms can be rather rigid. And so, this provides less than stellar customer experience as brands have less control over what the customers see, and it can be expensive to make changes to those more rigid platforms. Can you talk about how a composable e-commerce approach can help here?
Yeah, the fact that, again, in theory, these all-in-one solutions provide all the functionality you need as a brand. But the
Right.
reality is that very often these functionality are not the best in class functionality. So you need to customize and you need to find a way to adapt those platforms to your needs. So again, with the composable approach, you rather pick best in class components and highly specialized components. And each component, each capability provided by a specialized component is, let's say, much better in general,
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
the monolithic counterpart. So again, and also these components are designed to be composed, to be integrated with each other through APIs. So they are natively designed to be composed. They are like Lego bricks, and you can
Yeah.
build the final platform with that. It is not a hack. It's really designed for that.
Yeah, yeah. And so in addition to things like the user experience of those e-commerce platforms that can be, to use your words, the monolithic platforms, let's say, another challenge for the brands themselves is if you're operating globally, if you're operating in different countries have different trade rules, things like exchange rates, duties, taxes, other things. How can Composable help here?
I see that this requirement, which is what makes e-commerce complex for global brands, because it's true, you have to be one brand globally, but you have to localize your business use for the different countries or regions, because each country or region has its own legal requirements, or even different cultural, let's say, characteristics. So, for example, you may want to localize your catalog for different markets. You may want to localize your payment gateways and so on. So Composable by itself is not, let's say, the solution, is not really addressing this requirement, but the commerce component in a composable stack, by being a best-in-class component, should support this kind of localization requirements. So again, this is the composable approach. Let you pick a transactional engine that is flexible enough to support, among other things, also the localization needs that the global brand needs to build and to manage their business worldwide.
Yeah, yeah. And so we've talked about a few things already, but can you identify some other challenges that companies that are doing e-commerce currently face using those more rigid platforms that composable approaches can help solve?
Yeah, when I was in Gucci, one of the biggest challenges that we had was an organizational challenge related to the platform, to the technology. But the problem with, again, with the monolithic approach is that you have different, let's say, departments of your organization. Let's say the marketing department and the IT department that have to work with the same solution, with the same monolithic solution. And from one side, the marketing department always push for creativity, for changing the experience and testing, iterating, and so on. On the other side, there is the IT department that has to deal with the stability, the security of the platform. So the point is that that solution can be good for both their parts, because these are very different and very valid requirements. And so let's say the first step of Composable is headless. Headless is a way of separating the front end from the back end of your e-commerce, and you start decomposing your monolith in two parts. The front end is what allows the marketing department to, again, to create outstanding customer experiences without impacting the security and the stability of the platform, of the engine. On the other side, the IT department can work on a very stable, scalable, transactional and commerce engine. So again, the challenge is technical, but is also very organizational. And this is one example. Another one is still talking about the organizational challenge, is the developer experience, which is becoming more and more important in our organization. Very often I speak to brands that have developers or agencies, that
Yeah.
serve developers. after the pandemic, everyone can work for from anywhere and for any company. Developers like to work with cutting edge technologies, and they like to work with modern technologies. And so, if you don't let them work with the technology they like, you
Yeah.
know, they become frustrated. Not just developers, also the business users that have to work with legacy and slow and hard to manage solutions. So
Yeah.
again, the technology is playing an important role, and this becomes a very important organizational issue if you don't provide your employees with the best tools in the market.
Before we continue, I'd like to introduce you to a sponsor of the show, Basecamp. Throughout my career, whether it was at my own agency or now as a consultant, Basecamp is what we rely on to help keep projects on track, on schedule, and on budget. It takes a straightforward approach to project management, it streamlines workflow management, and definitely keeps the team in the loop and on top of ongoing updates, which all are major components in a smooth running operation. No matter if it's a simple campaign or a multi-million-dollar project, Basecamp has been a key ingredient in the recipe for a successful project and business. If you're struggling with projects, sign up for Basecamp. Their pricing is simple and they give you all their features in a single plan. No upsells, no upgrades. Go to basecamp.com/agile, that's basecamp.com/AGILE, and try Basecamp for free. No credit card required and cancel anytime. Thank you, Basecamp, for sponsoring this episode. Now let's get back to the show. We've approached this from a few different angles, from the organizational level and just how Composable can help with that approach. Let's talk a little bit from the customer's experience, because they obviously don't know that the inner workings of what's delivering their e-commerce experience, but they sure know when it's not optimal or when it feels clunky or just it feels like it's missing something. So, how should brands think about this relationship between, a composable approach to their e-commerce and the impact on what the customer sees and feels and really the customer experience?
I believe the customer experience should be the main driver why a brand should want to look at the composable solution, because as you said, the customer interacts with the experience that you provide. They don't know what's the technology behind that.
Yeah.
At least they don't know, let's say they are not aware of that, but they feel a different type of customer experience.
Right.
For example, the performance of a website. The customer definitely appreciate a very fast website, and there are many research that demonstrate that an increase in site performance
Yeah.
has a direct impact on the conversion rate. And so the site speed and the performance of the website has a very direct impact on the experience itself. So again, you should start actually from the customer experience. You should do that to enhance the customer experience. The reason why you want to pick the best tools is to provide the best experience to your customers. And so essentially you take your monolithic experience, your monolithic front end, you split that experience into multiple micro experiences. For example, content, commerce, images and videos, recommendations, search. These are all micro experiences. And you, again, by splitting your monolith and by building each micro experience with highly specialized tools and technology, allows you to really build the final product, which is the best customer experience that you can provide.
Yeah, that's great. And so most of the audience listening to this show comes from either like a marketing or customer experience background or something kind of related to that. What should those people know about the technology requirements of taking a composable approach? What is their engineering, data, other IT teams need to have in place, or what does their MarTech infrastructure need to have in place in order to support a composable approach?
Yeah, there are two things that I'd like to discuss. One is not as complex as it may sound, because when you think of a monolithic platform, you think that you are in a safe place because it's a monolith, it's all in an
Right.
all-in-one solution. Instead with a composable stack, you start thinking of multiple moving, pieces that you have to put together. The fact that, again, it may sound complex, but it's not that complex because these components are built for that. They're like, again, it's using the Lego bricks analogy can
Yeah.
make sense. So they're built for that. They're built to be composed, so it's not that complex. And the second thing is, you don't have to do a switch from a monolithic solution to a composable stack in one step. Actually, we highly recommend to progress incrementally, to do it step by step. And so you can start with one micro experience, one of those micro experiences that I was mentioning before, and you can progress incrementally, test, learn, and iterate. So it's a journey, it's not a big bang.
Yeah.
From an IT perspective, from a technical perspective, another aspect to consider is that compared to, let's say, how developers used to build e-commerce 10 years ago, this approach is changing the type of skills required to build this type of experiences. In general, I would say that front-end developers are all you need to build a beautiful experience, because the front-end developers now have become full stack thanks to the availability of different APIs to build the experience itself. So again, type of skills have changed a lot, and all modern developers like to work with React or with Vue.js, with Svelte. I don't want to go too technical here, but again, in general, working with the modern technologies is what modern developers want to do.
Yeah, and there's plenty of developers available that use those technologies, and to your point, they're popular, which also makes it better than, from a monolithic standpoint. Sometimes, depending on the platform, it might be hard to find a very specific developer that only knows that platform or knows that platform in depth versus knowing some more ubiquitous, more widespread technology. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, let's talk a little bit more specifically about Commerce Layer now, your company. So you introduced a little bit at the beginning of the show, but what's coming up on your roadmap that brands should be aware of, and what is your thinking for the months ahead with Commerce Layer?
Yeah. So for sure, as I mentioned, we are the transactional engine of a composable stack, and we provide a very powerful and flexible multi-market capabilities, meaning that you can localize your business, and we solve many of those challenges that we were mentioning before. Speaking of our roadmaps, for sure, we are going all in with this composable commerce approach, to the point that we are also releasing micro front ends that allow you to support to use like Commerce Layer to power some of those micro experiences that we were mentioning on the front end. I'm talking about the prices, availability message, the buy button, the shopping cart, checkout, my account. All these micro experiences can be provided by Commerce Layer also on the front end. Another thing and so again, we are going all in with a composable approach, and we are evolving our product to provide more and more tools to developers and brands to embrace and that composable approach. Another type of let's say evolution that we are promoting is the way you think about e-commerce is not necessarily restricted to your .com. You should think about the different touch points, and we talk about distributed commerce. And so with Commerce Layer, you actually can add a transactional engine to any touch point. Think of, for example, a clienteling app. If a brand has some physical stores, or maybe you are like building and running some marketing campaigns, and instead of linking that campaign to the .com e-commerce website, why don't you make that campaign shoppable? So Commerce Layer allows that, allows you to transform that experience, that marketing campaign, into a shoppable moment to the cart for your customers.
Yeah. That's great. Wonderful. Well, one last question before we wrap up here. You've given a lot of great advice already on e-commerce and looking at a composable approach. But what would be your advice for brands that are in the process of evaluating their e-commerce options in the months ahead?
I'd say start embracing the composable approach as fast as you can, and start from somewhere. You don't have to think of a big bang replatforming project. Instead, you should identify the most urgent issue and the value that you can, also the a quick win that you can have. So right now, you are running a business on any platform. If you're evaluating a platforming, it means that you have some challenges. Let's identify the most urgent one, and let's approach that challenge with a micro front end approach, with a composable approach, meaning that instead of looking to replatform the whole thing in one shot because of those challenges, let's fix that challenge with introducing one micro front end. So this way you are starting your journey. You are already composing your stack with what you have now and the next component. If that component is commerce layer, for example, something that we are doing with many of our clients, they are running on a monolithic platform, whether it is Magento, Shopify, Salesforce, Hybris, or others. And you can start with commerce layer by replacing the transactional engine of that platform, and then you progress from that. Then you start swapping other components, and at some point you will have a fully composable stack. Another advice is be careful of not building another monolithic platform, because if you pick different tools and you build another monolith, then you go back to the same challenges that you have right now. So make sure that you pick components that can be swapped in or swapped out. You can always replace the components that you are putting in your stack, so that you will never have to replatform again in the future. At least you will have to evolve some components independently and to swap those components one by one, instead of thinking of another heavy and costly replatforming project.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest selling points on composable, for what it's worth, is just this idea that you don't have to scrap everything and start over when you want to enhance part of the process. And I think that, definitely as a proponent of agile and iterative processes, I think that to me, that's what I get excited about with composable, is just that idea that you can switch out a piece for the best, to improve whether it's the front end customer experience or the back end integrations, and yet not have to scrap and start over and redesign from scratch. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a very agile approach. And we should keep in mind that composable starts with two components. You don't have necessarily to include like 5 or 10 components. With two components, you're already getting benefits, and you progress from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, great advice. And thanks so much again for joining. I'd like to thank Filippo Conforti, founder and CEO of Commerce Layer, for joining the show. You can learn more about Filippo and Commerce Layer by following the links in the show notes. Talk with you next week. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GregKihlstrom.com. To get a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, visit my website, or you can find it on Amazon or other retailers. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.